So we'll see.
What up, man?
Nick, what is going on, my man?
What up?
How's everything going your way? You're on the east side of the state, correct? Michigan?
Yeah, Metro Detroit area, man. I'm busy as hell right now.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so now here on Growing on You Live, I'll do a little breakdown, just as far as we're going to kind of dig into, especially today with the new movie, we're going to be digging into that. We're going to be digging into film interest. We're going to be digging into Wounded Touch. You guys got a new album coming out, so some earlier interests, some things that are more, recent. And then I have one finale that I wrote just for this episode. So we're going to dig right in if you're all settled and you're comfy and ready to go, my man.
How's the
just so you know as well.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me right now on the audio?
Yeah, everything sounds good.
Cool. All right, cool, man.
Yep. Everything sounds good, yeah. I for whatever reason, developed a cough. I got a COVID test yesterday. Luckily, I'm negative, so I can, play these couple of shows I have going. But if I have to, pop a cough drop, I apologize, just to let you know my voice is kind of fucked up right now.
That's cool.
How convenient,
I got my medicine right here, which is my coffee.
Yeah, right, okay. So now starting as far as film interest, I wanted to dig into, as far as earlier on, and something that you remember as far as maybe a television series or a movie that really resonated with you, possibly inspiring, your interest in film.
I really dug movies with kids as a kid, and this is funny. When I'll start to list this stuff off, you'll see the stuff that I was watching as a kid that I watched way too early. But I remember a movie right away that I dug was Aliens, just because of one of the main characters being a child. And that, Monster Squad, and stuff like Goonies. And then a big one though that didn't have kids that started to really really start to make me think of like my own stories and stuff I wanted to make was Tales from the Crypt, with the HBO one. That was a huge one.
Okay.
So
all right. Were there particular episodes?
What's that?
Sure. Were there particular episodes that really stuck out as far as with Tales from the Crypt?
Oh God, there was this one that's really wild. That's not even really that scary, but I remember it was a guy is in the desert hiding from the police, and the cop handcuffs him to himself to take him in, and and then the cop ends up dying, and this guy ends up having to drag through the desert with this cop handcuffed to him, and he ends up getting eaten by vultures. And I remember just that, I was like, oh my God, that sucks. Everything about this sucks. And that just really drew me towards stories where everything sucks and there's no resolution. I just really dug that.
Yeah. I mean, I could certainly say, like as far as like Tales from the Crypt or even like Twilight Zone, those things were always something that I think really sparked like the interest even till now, as far as short stories, when you can go and you can make a short, or you can even reading, like some of Stephen King stuff, you can get something that's in 20, 30 pages or whatnot, or half hour, 20-minute short, it's like, and it has an impact, it's like, man, that's fucking impressive. That really like that's so sick. I love that for sure.
Well, I really dug a show called Night Gallery, which is Rod Serling, but it was more just horror focused. I loved that too, and I'm actually right now trying to buy myself a Christmas present. I found the whole series on Blu-ray, so I'm trying to snag that because I loved Night Gallery a lot.
I don't think I'm familiar with that. Okay, was this was it 70s or 80s, or was this later?
Yeah, 70s. It was at the same time as Outer Limits and Twilight Zone. But it's like he's a museum curator, and he like shows paintings, and he'll go, this piece was found in the apartment of a dead artist, and it's called, and then it's the story behind it. And most of them were they were like Lovecraft adaptations. There was like a lot of, some stories were published ones, some were written specifically for the show, but some of them were really bleak and gruesome, and it was a lot more edgy than I think Twilight Zone and Outer Limits were. It was in color, unlike the other two as well.
Oh, sure. Wow. Yeah, I've never even, I don't think, maybe I've seen like stills or like cover image, as far as like releases of it or whatnot, but it's not widely released?
It was on TV. There's a lot of episodes on YouTube, but Night Gallery is a huge one for me that I recommend. So
Damn. Yeah, well, I'll have to check that out. Shit. What about, so as far as like earlier on scanning through a video shop, what comes to mind as far as something drawing you in from the cover art or poster art? Something that may have just been ridiculous or awesome. And did it build up to the movie?
Because my friends and I were just having this conversation the other day about that's an experience that this totally, dates us and makes us seem old, but the experience of not having any idea what was in a movie until you watched it pre-internet or accessible internet, and you had the cover art, which is why cover art means so much to me. And I remember there was this mom and pop video store right up in town that my brothers and I always went to. And the horror section, we would just walk up and down every time, and there'd always be that one movie that you're like, one day I'm gonna watch that one. And I remember I really always dug the cover for House, which is the hand, pressing it.
Yeah.
I wrote a couple of these down. And like the Friday the 13th final chapter, just the mask with the knife in it, having never seen any of them, that one always really fucked with me. But the three that stick out to mind, there's this really bad series, the fourth one called Subspecies 4, Bloodstorm.
Yeah, okay.
Do you remember that one? It's just a blood.
Oh yeah.
And it's Count Radu with the fangs. Like that one always scared the shit out of me. The Dead Alive cover, with the mouth being open with the little. That one, I was always like, oh my god, I'm never gonna watch that. And then Faces of Death. This place had. That's how mom and pop and like not corporate this place was. They had the whole Faces of Death series there. And I remember always looking at those and actually being a little disappointed when I watched it, because I remember thinking like, oh, this is just videos of people dying. I thought this was like going to be the scariest movie ever made. Like, imagine being a kid and being disappointed because you're like, oh, this is just people dying. That was a scary movie.
Yeah.
Like, so that was
I was disappointed in those movies in a different way. I'm like, god damn it, why am I spending another Saturday night watching this shit? Like with my friends just bullying me into fucking watching people dying over and over. But then years later, find out a lot of it wasn't real. It was like,
right. I still dig it though.
What a roller coaster.
I have this Faces of Death hat that I wear. Faces of Death to me is like this really huge, important aspect of bridging the gap between exploitation and like stuff that was taboo into mainstream, at least in horror. And like, I really dig what Faces of Death kind of symbolizes pre-internet age, but pre-ogrish.com and like all the stuff that we were all way too young, I'm sure, stumbling on,
Yeah.
So, but yeah, those were all covers, especially or Dead Alive. Dead Alive was the one that like, to me is untouchable. That's so iconic.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so when watching that and, kind of digging into it, all the silliness and goofiness, was it something that, that you were like, that you were happy that you ended up watching, or was it kind of a bummer based on what you saw on the cover?
I loved Dead Alive, but it was not what I thought it was going to be. It was so goofy and like fun that I remember I didn't expect it. I imagined it as a kid because, you can only read the back. You can't, you don't know anything about it. I thought it was going to be like body horror, like this, corpse growing inside of someone and coming out the mouth. And that's, one of the earliest things, and that's kind of a discussion we had with our movie is what goes on the cover and how relevant does it have to be with what happens in the movie. And, that's another example of something that didn't happen in the movie. I mean, I guess the baby did pop out of the face, but it wasn't someone living inside someone.
Right.
But, I very rarely did it ever live up to the expectations that the cover set. Very rarely.
Yeah, totally. Or you had a lot of times where it was like you had a Saturday night and you had just enough money for 3 movies and you chose everything, off of the covers, and every one of them suck. It's like, fuck, man. That's ruined the whole weekend.
Yeah. Return of the Living Dead was the one my brother and I rented. I actually remember that moment of thinking, I think we're way too young to be watching this, man. Actually, watching it, and when they start sawing the head off the frozen corpse, and I was like, oh shit, man, this is way more than I thought it was gonna be. And we still watch the whole thing, that's a staple for me. But that was, I remember that too being one that we're just like, yeah, this has been on the shelf, nothing about it, and then you watch it and you're like, oh shit. So I'm thankful that I grew up here. I actually see my buddy Brendan in here too from Over and Out Recordings saying the same thing. Growing up near a mom and pop movie store, I think was like important
Awesome.
for so many people because that was such a huge exposure to so much stuff.
Yeah.
So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that was the same way over here too. We had a couple. You had like your Hollywood videos and like Family Video and all that, or Blockbuster, I guess it was for the longest time. But having like those little shops that was like in a strip mall or some shit, and the horror section was in the back next to the nasty ass bathrooms or the porn section. It was like
the adult
dark and dirty.
Yeah, and I remember always thinking that
dirty
was like
corner.
I always thought that was the really extreme movies, and then like you find out later, you're like, oh, it's just like naked grown-ups, like whatever. Like,
yeah.
And then you get older, and then you start to get more intrigued by that back corner. But like when you're younger, you're like, oh,
Right.
whatever. Like,
yeah. So now touching on things like Faces of Death and Dead Alive. Let's dig into 3 scenes in film that are forever ingrained in your brain, whether disturbing, traumatic, gross, or maybe even straight up terrifying. What comes to mind from from things that you've seen and watched?
The first time I watched a kid die in a movie and how much that fucked me up because that was such an untouchable thing at some point. It was the remake of The Blob when they're in the sewers.
Oh, yeah.
And the little kid gets grabbed and pulled under and they can't find him. And then he shoots out of the water like melting and he's like a skull and he's trying to grab her. That part fucked me up so bad. Just this melting child in a really graphic death. And the kid was a turd in the movie, if I remember. And like, he totally had it coming, but I remember like actually seeing that line get crossed for the first time. More that come to mind, and this was more as I became more of an adult, but have you ever seen the movie The Entity? Yeah, I have no idea what that was.
All right. All right. Okay, so you were touching on The Entity.
Yeah, the opening of The Entity, the sexual assault, and you can't see what it is at all. She just she's like brushing her hair, and then she just gets her face slammed into a mirror, and has no idea what's going on. That, the first, and the score, which is just like this distorted guitar just going bang, bang, bang. That scared the shit out of me, and I watched it again recently, and it is still untouchable. The Entity is still like terrifying to me, and then the other one I remember is the eye gouge in Zombie.
Oh man,
that one, my mom bought me Zombie, not knowing what it was. She just, I was in 7th grade, and she just was like, oh, this is like Night of the Living Dead, and this is like not knowing what it was. I don't know where she was to find because DVD it wasn't new, but it was like, it was strange because it was kind of an import, and the first, it was already really gory. But I had never, up until that point, seen something that didn't cut away, like actually showing, the profile, and the whole thing just going and breaking off. That was another like, whoa! Like, I actually have that tattooed on me, like that.
God.
That blew my mind, man. That I love, like that changed everything for me. That one.
Oh my Lord, that is insane! Holy shit! Yeah, that's impactful. I mean, you go and you're like, I got to get this tattooed.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that was.
Oh man,
that's one that'll never leave me too. Even still, I watch it. I'm like, woof, every time.
Oh man, that is funny. So lastly, digging into interest and personal interest as far as like there's lots of horror remakes that are made of just mainstream franchises nowadays. You have Texas Chainsaw Massacres and Halloweens and different things. What is something that's always come to mind that maybe was a bad horror movie but had a great idea and would be really cool to remake? What comes to mind?
So I have 2. One is not bad and it's great, but I think it would be killer to like make something in the story, or which and it's a well-known one, would be the Pumpkinhead series. I would love to like see an update sequel to Pumpkinhead. But one that I would love to do, if and this is obviously just in fantasy world, would be there's this old flick called Prophecy. Not The Prophecy with Christopher Walken, but Prophecy.
The monster.
Yeah. It's like this eco-horror film that takes place on a Native American reservation, and this, and it's like they're dumping chemicals at this factory into the water, and all the animals are getting mutated. And this bear, it's like Jaws on land, but it's this, for anyone who hasn't seen it that is watching, it's like the bear in Annihilation, if it was like 3 times its size, just eating and killing people. And it's limited by what they could do with the creature effects, and like its size changes depending on the scene. But the that movie Prophecy, because I feel like it's still relevant, like an eco horror movie. Also with like, you know, the way indigenous people in North America have been treated, touching on that, touching on, you know, capitalism, and like you know, just touching on like even things like toxic waste being dumped improperly and mishandled on top of all the other things. I feel like it's still a relevant film, which is kind of terrible to think that that's still where we're at in society. But Prophecy is one that I would love to see remade, whether it was me or someone else. So that's
that's awesome. That's one that I haven't heard mentioned either, you know, and for sure I completely agree. I mean, it's there's a lot of cool things, but I feel like it's either budgetary or just, you know, the time, you know, with the restraints that they could do a lot more with that. That'd be sick. I've never even thought of that, but that'd be fucking awesome. I would love
to see Prophecy done. So that's my pick.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. I love it. I have a Prophecy t-shirt upstairs. I wear that bastard all the time.
Oh, is that
movie's fucking cool.
Was that Paul Bear or no, the Fright Rags did that? They did one recently.
My buddy got it for me from a film festival, or not a film festival, like a horror convention. Yeah, it's just a cover art with like the label and the monster on the front, like kind of in the egg shape.
Oh, that's
love that. Love that movie too.
Yeah.
So as far as yourself, you know, kind of taking on, you know, diving into film wise, you know, what were initial steps or even the earlier process as far as, you know, getting into film, whether, you know, school projects or making movies with friends?
Like
what was, you know, kind of the first step?
Nothing professional. It started with, when I was in middle school, my Christmas present, because I always wanted to make my own things. So my parents bought me a camera, and you could put like mini DVs in it, and that's what I started with. And my brothers and I would just make stuff, whether it was stop motion or anything. And I remember my buddy Garrett and I, the moment we figured out converting that onto we'd make things, put it on VHS, and sell it at school. And the moment we figured out editing techniques, like, oh, we need gunshot sound effects. Well, we just got the idea of putting the video out from the camera to put it onto the tape, simultaneously running the audio out from our Xbox and having Halo turned on and just pressing the trigger the moment we were shooting. And I remember going, would that work? And the moment it did, like thinking we were the smartest fucking dudes, we were like, oh my God, we have sound effect. Like that was, and I remember it was like all bets were off at that point. We and doing practical things to the point where I got in trouble. I would find a way to do a video project for anything. And there was a Civil War project I had to do. It was about Gettysburg, and we shot it in black and white because you could select that on the camera. And I remember there was nothing historical about it. It was like friends in gray shirts and friends in blue shirts killing each other. And it was just like, we had a part where we made fake guts, and like I'm stabbing a guy with like an old repeater rifle, and it's my little brother with like fake guts coughing up blood going, Mama, like screaming. And we made like cannonballs where somebody was on a hill and somebody was on the other side of the hill with dirt, and you fling it up to look like a cannonball launch. And then all of a sudden you stand there with like the arm missing and screaming. And I remember like getting an F on that because it was just like basically
oh no.
Yeah. But I remember all of us thinking that was so sick, and that's just kind of where it started. I never thought, you know, I'd work on anything. I never thought I'd ever like I'm probably gonna go slip into seeing Intrusion tomorrow at a matinee showing at a theater. I never thought I mean, it's still weird to me, because to me I still think, well, it's limited theatrical, it doesn't really count, you know. So it's still
a theater, dude.
It's still surreal, man, to think
so
like
sick
that I'm in this position. So that's where it started, man. Was just me and my brothers and our friends just making stuff for fun, and it just kind of, you know, moved on until we eventually said, do you think we can make a whole movie? And we made something like, you know, feature length.
Yeah, that's so fucking awesome. And honestly, you know, like my friend and I, my best friend Ryan, we were the same way. He got a camera for Christmas when we were in middle school, and it just took off from like making shorts, making fun of other movies, doing all sorts of different things, making music videos for friends, all this shit, you know. And it was kind of like looking into more and listening into more of the process with you, and like kind of a little bit of your background with different things, and then being able to go to the screener and seeing the movie in the theater. Like, it was a cool, surreal moment where it felt like it was like really personal to myself. I have nothing to do with, you know, like I hadn't met you until, you know, the movie, but it kind of felt like, you know, like myself in this position where it was like a close friend, like, holy shit, like this is so cool, man. Like, to be able to, I had
a lot of people say that too, man, because it started with me like even posting pictures of me writing stuff, and then it's like, oh, we're actually gonna make it. Oh, like literally every step was on social media. So I had a lot of friends, and when it started, nobody knew it would get to this point. So other people have said the same thing, like watching it from the ground up has been a very wild ride. And I'm like, yeah, it's the same thing for me. It's still weird, and I still don't know where it's gonna go. You know, we've acquired like multiple foreign contracts, and the film's coming out around the world starting this month, and that's still like weird, knowing that there's gonna be people in South Korea watching it in the theater. So that's super wild.
Yeah, it's so sick.
So
that's awesome. I mean,
leads, you know, who knows? But I'm just gonna try to enjoy the ride for right now.
Yeah, you know, hopefully too, if there's something where, you know, like it's going across seas and coming up with different poster arts, you can get your hands on some of that shit to be able to have as like collectibles.
And
that stuff's always like, really fucking cool.
Have different variations for Germany, Poland, and everything like that. So, because I love Rucking Fountain and having all the, you know, Japanese boots. So so being able to collect the foreign posters is a big thing to me too. So I definitely dig that.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome. Well, I mean, so digging into an Intrusion, you know, being your second feature, tell us about, you know, as far as working on Wronged, working on Wronged, you know, what assisted in that process initially with the first feature, you know, coming into an Intrusion? What were some things that maybe you had stumbled upon in the first one where you're like, fuck, I didn't prep for this, you know, and it helped on working on an Intrusion?
Wronged was, you know, my friends and I had made our own, you know, features, meaning us making something that was over an hour long. Like, so their features in that, it was us fucking around for over an hour. You know, we did this thing called Hunger and Holy, which is like a werewolf, you know, film that ended up, Nemesis Video locally put it out on VHS, and it was just us doing something for fun. And then Wrong was like that point of, okay, I'm gonna try to make something not just with my friends. Like, I'm actually gonna have a camera crew, a sound department, and let's just see if we can take that step. And it still was so barely above what we were doing. You know, we made it for $12,000, and we were super over ambitious on that. And it still came out on a subsidiary of Lionsgate. And it's so many faults, but it's still what opened the door for this for me. So it still was an important step. And it was one of the first moments of realizing, like, hey, man, you're going to have to trust other people with other stuff. You can't take on everything on your own. So that vulnerable point of coming onto this movie and saying, I'm going to have someone else doing these things because I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm going to have to trust other people. And that was kind of what I learned on that one. And I'm still learning it. You know, I'm still learning to take off, instead of wearing 20 hats, take off different ones and, you know, trust other people. So
sure. Okay. You know, and it's been a process too, as far as myself and always being a film fan and different things, but digging into, you know, these interviews and, you know, people who do special effects, people who do, you know, art department, who might do the cinematography, you know, like it's really interesting to see that and really, you know, like step back and look at how much shit goes into all these, you know. And so that's kind of why it's been a little bit important to me, you know, as far as with obviously like reaching out to directors and actors, but also like someone who like was the cinematographer who, you know, who might have been going into makeup design, like, because all this shit comes together and you hear all these really cool stories. That it is absolutely crazy and probably uncomfortable at points, you know, having to step back and be like, okay, I have to trust that this person's going to do the right thing, and hopefully it doesn't get fucked up.
Oh, that was like our digital cinema package and stuff like that, like stepping away and going. And then in New York, before the world premiere, I hadn't seen it. I hadn't seen like it converted, because they have to up the frame rate and slow down the audio so everything lines up, and all just this very complex process. And I hadn't seen it yet. So we're in a sold out theater right around the corner from fucking Times Square. And I'm sitting in the middle going, dude, I'm going to know within the first 40 seconds if this looks like shit. and I'm just gonna have to sit there. And I'm like, and all I'm thinking is, if this looks terrible, I'm gonna have to sit there for an hour and a half and just let it happen. And then it came on, and everything was fine. But I just remember thinking, like just that nervousness. I wanted to puke. I did puke. I didn't tell my wife that or anything. I threw up a little before the world premiere. I was so nervous and I went to the bathroom, like threw up a little because I was there. So it was so nerve wracking. I threw up while shooting the movie. And I remember the first moment of going, I'm thinking I'm in way over my head. I won't spoil it, but the ending of the movie, being on set and shutting down a whole street in Lake Orion and having 20 cops and our crew of 30 people, our makeup people, everything, people watching and all of that. And everybody's looking at me like, hey, what are we doing next? And just me going, oh, fuck, man. We had Scout Taylor Compton there. It was my first time meeting her. Meeting her in person was on set at that moment, shooting that scene. So I hadn't met with her before or anything. So, are you there? Did I lose you yet? It looks old. Oh, okay. We're good.
Yeah, it's starting to break up a little bit, but we're good.
But that was the moment where I was like, oh shit, I'm in way over my head. And we just had to power through it. So what I just, in those moments, I kind of just revert to my job. I was just thinking okay, well, if this was an accident scene and we got a couple mangled people and I got a crowd of 100 people watching me, what would I do? And I just had to kind of think of it that way. And it made it a lot easier if I just kind of removed myself from the art aspect and thought of it okay, well, how would I manage a crowd on something really bad and just move from there? And that really helped. When I started thinking of directing in that way, it made it a lot easier. Instead of thinking of the pressure of it, thinking of, well, look, this has to get done one way or another. So how do we do it? Not, oh, shit, what am I going to do? And it made it way easier from then on out, thinking of it in that manner.
Oh, okay. Yeah, if you just stand there and you kind of get caught in the lights and you're like, well, just standing here is not going to do shit, so I might well start moving something along.
Yeah, we got to do something. We got to do something to move, so here we go.
What can you tell us about the initial writing process for an Intrusion, as far as, what may have started the foundation? Was it something that, came to mind as far as an ending? Was there something, there's a lot going on in this movie. And that's one thing too, even listening to different interviews, everybody's mentioning that it's not in just one category. It's not just a thriller. It's not just a drama. There's a lot of shit going on.
And that's the funny thing is, I feel like what people want it to be or expect it to be also establishes their rating and what they took from it. Because people who go in expecting, I knew that was going to be a thing when marketing decided, look, we can't, there is so much going on, we have to kind of pick a direction for marketing. And they really leaned into the home invasion aspect. And it's that's an aspect of the movie. So I think people going in expecting that set themselves up with some kind of expectations that they shouldn't have. And that impacts it. Whereas other people go in thinking it's a drama, like a character drama, and I feel like it's I wish we could have, because what it really is a very slow burn character suspense drama with this big intense ending. And but you can't say all that on a poster. But the ending is what was written first. It actually started with the whole bar sequence on Christmas Day leading up to the end, and this whole ending and everything, that the twist and everything about it, and we worked backwards from there. So that's so when people go, oh, this feels like, I had I remember one reviewer, the one I'm kind of talking about in terms of the home invasion expectation, said, oh, I don't understand this ending added on. And I'm not ever going to be that guy and comment and go, well, actually, but it is somewhere I want to go, that is the movie. We wrote the ending, or I wrote the ending and thought of everything leading up to it. So that's where it started. Wow. And I just kind of thought about, I wanted it to be a slow build and thought about the path leading to that.
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
Personal stuff kind of influenced the story and everything on that, but the ending is where it first came from.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, and I know too at the premiere you would kind of mention how there were certain things, personally and whatnot, which I wasn't gonna dig into or pry or anything like that, but just as far as where the process started and everything with writing it too. Yourself making a cameo in the movie. What was there anything behind the line that you threw in there? As far as it looks like you're saying heart rate 78. Is that right, or am I?
Yeah. I'm
completely
just saying,
off.
I'm just reading off vitals. That wasn't even supposed to be me. We just needed a medic, and we changed. My partner at work was going to play that part, and the schedule
Okay.
and he was then working that day. We were shooting late, so I'm like, well, I got all my gear with me in my car, so I'm like, I'll just play the medic in the opening. So.
Oh shit. Okay. Okay.
So yeah, I actually technically make 2 cameos in the movie, but the other one I won't even. That's just something you'll dig in and find it. But
Oh, okay.
yeah. But when I'm on screen in my face, it was just, utility over aesthetic. I was like, well, we need a medic. I'm not going to throw my uniform on an actor. I'm just going to take vitals. And I just thought of what I would do if I was there, which is just taking vitals. She's fine, and I'm just going to, explain the sign-off process. And it kind of, just went from there.
Yeah. Okay. All right. What about as far as when writing the script, and some of the things with it being, based in Michigan, did you have anything in mind as far as initial like locations that, hey, I have to shoot this, this scene in a club. Why not throw in the sanctuary? That place.
So,
I love that spot, by the way.
Oh, it's, Maxwell and that venue are
The best.
The absolute best and a staple in this, in this state and its scene. And it actually wasn't written in mind because when it was written, he didn't own the sanctuary yet. He had the sanctuary, but it was the church, not as it is right now.
Oh, okay. Yep.
It was kind of just written about a bar I'd been to before, and like a seedy bar, where it's like everybody's there dancing, but there's all the undertones. Everybody's walking out of the bathroom, rubbing their nose and stuff, and just thinking of like some club in a downtown area where, yeah, it's a goth club, but there's like, a lot of other implications with it. And it actually does. So the film doesn't take place in Michigan. Everyone from here will know it's here, but it's just, we kind of left it vague. One of our leads has a Southern accent, one has a Canadian accent. And we were okay with that because we're like, it takes place somewhere in the United States. And that's,
okay.
But anyone from here is going to know, oh, that's downtown Detroit, or, oh, that's, Rochester or anything like that. So
sure.
I kind of just wrote it and knowing, okay, well, if we did shoot this here, I know I could get this, this, and this, but it wasn't specific to Michigan itself.
Oh, okay. Got ya. What about as far as with casting, when specifics, were you looking for specific things as far as with certain characters and when, you kind of started putting out the line there as far as different people that may have been interested?
The only person was Keir. When I wrote it, and as I was writing, I was like, I'm going to ask Keir. I remember like having to build up to that question going, I'm just going to ask him, man, if he would want to do this. And it just kept going, nah, he's going to say no. And just being nervous and like, I'll get to it at some point. I'll ask him. One day I just said, all right, I was like, all right, bro, it's time. Like, I'm going to be that guy for a second. What do I have to do to like, pitch something to you? And he's like, just email it to me. So I just sent it to him and he instantly was like, yeah, I'm down. Let's do it. So he
Sweet.
was the only person who I had in mind for it. Everything else just kind of meeting certain people, certain things fell into place. Billy Boyd was just an insane, like, right place, right time type thing, and all of that. But everything else kind of just fell into it naturally.
Okay. And upon the first one, I've now watched it. I guess it's total 4 times just between trying to get down details and
Hell yeah.
Just being a fan and digging the movie. But the initial time, it was something where it was like, man, Dustin is really like pulling everything, all of my feelings, out of this, and really kind of like pulling the eyes to the screen and kind of drifting you in, and then watching it another time. There's throughout the movie, there's a lot of different people that are really pulling in key aspects to the story, and really pulling in, as far as like Erica, going to have her on, and there's a certain scene with her, out on the balcony, or out in their conversation. It was fucking tough, man. I mean,
the balcony,
certainly
the dialogue in the on the balcony was stuff that was actually said in a real conversation. So a lot of the dialogue is pulled from real life, and I'll just say that. And that was a wild one to shoot. And I don't know if it's because it was we were so exhausted, and that was like day 13 of shooting. But that like hit everybody. I think it hit her as it was happening. I think she was kind of realizing how it was feeling as it was happening. but everybody on the crew felt the same way. We're shooting that scene, and it got really emotional, even like for everybody. So that was that there were a lot of moments like that, like especially for me writing it, seeing it come to life, that became super surreal. And Dustin is one of the examples where just little subtleties he brought to it, certain that I was just like I knew the scene was supposed to feel that way, but when you see it, you're like, yeah, that's what's supposed to happen. And just so many moments like that. And Dustin is an unreal artist.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's done like 3 things. This is like his first real feature like role, and he's the lead in it. So it's really wild too, because people are like, oh, what's he been in? What's he from? And I'm like, nothing. So that's super wild.
I can certainly say on that first view, it was like a situation where I love to hate him, and then the following times I've watched him, I'm just like, I just fucking hate this guy.
Yeah, and
I love that.
That's been a negative aspect in some of the reviews, which is funny to me. Some people love that and they get it, and some people do not. Like, some people have just been like,
they're doing their job.
Yeah, some people are like, I hate that the main character is unlikable, and I'm like, okay. Well, yeah, that's intentional. Like, sorry, he's an unlikable guy in a story about unlikable people, and that's all there is to it. It's not an accident that his character sucks. Like, he just sucks in everything.
Yeah, and so many little things, just even kind of like snide little remarks and different things where it's like, oh man, this bastard is like, he's something else. But certainly that's the thing where you're realizing, you're actually feeling this way from watching a movie. They're doing their job, I mean, and I love at the premiere where he's like, that's not actually me.
Yeah.
But please don't think I'm that guy.
Well, his own friends who didn't really, they found out he acted and watched it. They were like texting him going, God damn, man, like, how much of that is you? And stuff like that. So, yeah.
That is funny. What can you tell us about the Intruder's mask? So that's one, aspect, that was something that was really cool. And I always love to see a movie that, does that, because every once in a while you have something where it just looks kind of like a silly mock-up of something that you found at, I don't know, down the street. And that thing I thought was a really cool key aspect, to the movie and the mystery behind the character.
Two reasons. Well, and because of the twist, and that's why it never looks the same time. But the mask, we wanted it to be first off androgynous, because for multiple reasons, so you don't know who it is at any point. Another reason was I really just wanted to rip off Alice, Sweet Alice. I'll be honest, the mask in Alice, Sweet Alice creeps me out so bad. I was like, yeah, I want to have my own version of that, and so I just kind of went on a rabbit hole of finding something that reminded me of that, but was its own thing simultaneously. So that was a big thing.
Okay. I mean, and I can't say by any means that it's, completely like it looks like that, but now that you say that, I can see that. And that's a sick little nod. I love that.
Yeah. It's not like an exact ripoff, but you can totally see the influence on it, I think. Like after knowing it too. So
sure. So as far as a email that becomes, a source of antagonist in the movie sent by an M-ad, what can you tell us about this M-ad, this author? What is that from? Am I missing? Maybe I'm just a dumbass and I'm like not falling into.
If you can remember the ending, think about the person's name, and then that's where that plays into. But it also is a word on its own, like, yeah. So just little moments, little things like that are sprinkled throughout the movie. And I'll just
God damn it.
For my friends that watched it, I won't say it yet, but even in a message, I'll shoot you a message, like all the little things that you would never be able to guess the ending by those things, but when you go back and watch, you're gonna go, oh, that's what that's in reference to. So yeah.
Son of a bitch. Yeah. All right. Touche. Yeah, and I don't want to get like too far into spoilers either, because you know if people haven't seen it, there's so much like little things like that where, like I mentioned, kind of going back and watching it, I'm like, oh, how did I not notice that initially? And like kind of tie those things together. And I love that movie. I mean, that's awesome.
The Santa statue the first time when he walks around the house? And then it's not there? Did you notice that the first time? Because
no, not the first time. I feel like maybe a couple of times after watching.
Yeah, some people didn't, and then the next time they're like, "Oh shit, it's gone now." So
yeah,
I am happy that there's little things that have made people rewatch it, and I've had somebody tell me like on their rewatches, their enjoyment of it went up because of all the little things they didn't notice because they expected just a home invasion flick. And then when they watched it again, they're like, oh, shit, I didn't even realize that was in there. So I feel like it's definitely a rewatch film for sure.
Yeah. And I was going to mention that too, but I mean, some people kind of take that as almost like a diss on it. Like, oh, well, if I have to watch it a bunch of times to figure out what's going on. Not at all like that, as far as like, because I've kind of been writing up a review and I want it to be, just right where it's like it's complimenting, because in that sense too, it's like something like Hereditary, for instance. Watching that movie, you watch it the first time, it's like, oh shit, okay, this is awesome. You watch it again, and then you get kind of like different little odds and ends things, details as far as like further of what's going on. It's like, oh shit, so it's definitely a complimentary thing where if you see the movie, you get to go back and you get to watch it again. I love that. That's
cool.
That's a really cool.
It makes me think of like replayability on like video games too. You know what I mean? Like I'm glad to know that.
Oh yeah.
I'm glad to know that there's something different when you go back, because that's what I wanted. Because there's a lot of stuff that we just didn't call significant attention to. Where it was just in there, and I'm like, if people catch it, they do, and if they don't, they don't. So I'm glad that there is a lot of that we retained, throughout the whole movie that that people pick up on. So I'm glad to know that that's an aspect of it, because Hereditary was a film like that for me, where what I took from it the first time versus all the different times is significantly different. Not that I think we're comparable.
Yeah, for sure.
Not that I think we're comparable to Hereditary, but because that's, whether or not you like it, that's a cultural like shifting film. So I think I don't know, just a cool comparison to hear. So thank you, I appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. What about, so as far as score, I wanted to dig into working with Andy Nelson, and my man, some of the pieces that he had in this, and I'm going to have him on as well. So we're going to be digging in really far as his work on this. But what can you tell us about initial conversations about, what came to the film?
So Andy has recorded like the last 10, not that much, I guess, like the last 5 things I've done, but he's just, I have a dark wave project called Love Under Will, and Andy's kind of like the hidden third member who contributes to it. So Andy and I have written stuff together, but Andy was just someone just from the beginning. I was like, I just wanted to do it. I knew I wanted to have a friend score it, and I knew I wanted an original score from scratch. The soundtrack's gonna actually be coming out on a 12-inch. It's coming out on digital.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's coming out on digital really soon. It's backed up at the plant, but it's coming out on 12-inch soon. We're announcing, but Maxwell runs the label Grief Buffet, which is newer, and he's going to be putting it out. So when I gave it to Andy, I just sent him the script. I sent him the script and said, hey, read it, and what do you think? And he sent me like, tell me 2 movies you think it's going to look like. And I didn't tell him anything. He came up with the score from scratch of concepts, and I said, okay, this I want to use here, this I want to use here, stretch that out. This is going to be great for the ending, this is going to be great for the middle. And Andy just ran with it. He had very little direction in what to do with it. He kind of just did it, and this, I don't know, the score I think could probably be a make or break for some people, because I know in some scenes it's unconventional, but the score is one of my favorite aspects of the film, and I hope that no matter what, the score like retains its own identity and character. So. Oh,
for sure. And it's one of those things too, where it does, you mentioning character too, like there's certain moments where there's an unnerving thing that, you may have heard earlier in the movie, and it's like, oh, what's coming now?
Yeah. Like, oh, yeah, like a theme almost, but it only happens in certain types of scenes. Are you talking about like in the middle, like the bathtub with the,
yeah. Yeah.
That one, as soon as I heard that, I was like, oh, dude, I'm so stoked you wrote this. I can't wait to use it. Yeah, and I remember our one of our sound mixers was saying, like, there were certain scenes that reminded him of almost like Uncut Gems, where it was just anxiety. He's like, oh, this just.
Oh yeah.
They're like, there's like some scores where all it is it's like static that he pitch shifted with like a I can't remember what the hell he used. He'll tell you about it, but it's like it basically is like a tape manipulator, and he just manipulates it in real time, and it's like he was manipulating a pitch of static and feedback. And it made it, like, scenes where once I added it, it made me uncomfortable as hell, and I was so stoked that he did that. Like, what Andy did with the score blew my mind. So I think like I can't ever see myself making something from here on out where I don't have Andy scoring my stuff. But
yeah, that's. Do you remember the first thing that you ended up hearing back from him?
the one that's right before the title sequence, and in the middle for the bathtub. He just sent me a file that was called Stalk, and it was just that, or Stalker, or Stalking, or something. And I listened to it, I was like, oh god, this is that, and the very end, the home invasion sequence at the end. That's like. Like those two I heard. And I listened to them in my car on my way to work. Like, and I just at the time I was driving a car that had no radio, so I had to listen to it with headphones in traffic. And it made, like, I was driving through the city on my way into work at night, and I was like, God, this makes my skin fucking crawl. And I was like, awesome. So those were the first two he sent me, and then obviously there's a lot of emotional moments, so we had to like kind of have this other thing, these other approaches for the somber moments, but for like the stalker aspect, those were the moments that really made my skin crawl, that I was so stoked what he pulled off on that.
Oh yeah, for sure. Okay. What about as far as, touching, further on the score, and once again, not a spoiler. I don't want to get into, full, further into the scene or, what kind of develops, but tell us about Full of Hell's track, Trumpeting Ecstasy, and how did that come to appear in the movie? So
Dylan and I are friends, and we had a conversation at one show one time. He was just talking about movies, and he said, hey man, if you ever want to use something of ours, let me know. So right away I'm like, okay, I'm putting that in my back pocket. I'm going to save that. And then when that record dropped and I heard that track, right away I was like, oh, this is so cinematic. Like, just that. And I've had multiple people, a friend of mine who just saw it in theaters, him and his friends saw it in Minneapolis. He said they jumped out of their seats at that part. And I know it's like a really unconventional moment. Like, Andy didn't have anything to do with that. That was just something I really wanted to have that. But using that Full of Hell track was just like just an artistic decision, especially when it just cuts. It comes in and then it just goes away. But it's really funny using it because I knew I didn't want to just bullshit it or have it playing in the background like someone's listening to Full of Hell. Like, I wanted to use it, and I'm really, really stoked with how it came out in that part. It's just a weird little, stylistic choice, but I was just super happy because, having Kier, who I knew through music, and like shooting at Sanctuary, like how many people on the crew were from music, even the assistant director, one of my close childhood friends, Alex, we know each other through school, but we've been in bands together, not in heavy bands, but still involved in music. So much of the entire film was around like relationships through music. So to even be able to use that was a huge, what did my buddy Brendan just say? Reminded me of the Naked City song.
Oh, I totally agree. Funny Games.
Awesome.
I never thought about that. That is fucking great comparison.
Good one, Brendan. No, I was really stoked with how that worked out. So I like knowing that how many in New York, it made a lot of people jump out of their seats. So I'm really stoked on how it's actually a part of the movie,
There was different levels that I loved. I mean, first of all, I can say I completely forgot that we had this conversation. I was talking about Full of Hell, and you're like, yeah, I'm going to have such track, actually in my movie at kind of a pivotal moment. And I'm like, well, fuck, that makes perfect sense. Like, that movie is, that song can totally be in a track or in a movie, but then the aspect too of like, being a hardcore kid, being a kid that's always been in the music scene, and then kind of, you know, seeing different things, those worlds blend and those worlds collide, you know, instead of like maybe like a radio rock song or some shit like that, it being, you know, someone, you know, kind of still fairly underground, even though Full of Hell are huge, you know, kind of in our community. But in the sense of being, you know, like an underground, like hardcore band, seeing that, you know, like in a theater and, you know, regular people's reaction to like, what the fuck is this?
Oh, yeah,
it was totally awesome.
And then a lot of people, because I had people who were like, oh, is that your band? I'm like, I fucking wish that was my band. Thanks, I'm flattered. But little things too, even like, he didn't work on it, but a buddy of mine, Joe Yannick, who actually runs Yellow Veil Pictures, which is my favorite sales rep and distributor in the game right now. His band, Masakari, Kier has that as a back patch on his jacket. The cursed patch on the jacket, which is funny that he has that because I wear a cursed patch, that same one on my jacket. My buddy Matt in England, he wears one there. It's like this uniform choice. How many people put that there on their like black denim jacket, and having that in the movie, having all this merch. In the very, very beginning, you know, she's wearing a Wounded Touch shirt. That was totally just like, oh, we need a shirt that we have permission to use. And I was like, well, I got our merch in my car. I was like, I'm just going to throw this on her because, you know. And then I was like, oh, God, people are going to think that's so vain that I did that. And it was just like, at that point, it was just, I wanted a shirt. It's
practical.
Yeah. So I imagine it as being like his character's shirt that she's wearing a boyfriend's shirt. So I just, in the story in that, you know, because obviously there's what he listens to in the movie, his character, which it's funny. People thought that was a wardrobe choice of mine. We just had Kier like wear, because it fits his character. I said he pretty much brought his wardrobe. Like,
that's what he was saying.
That's his Carhartt jacket with the blasphemy patch on it. Like, that's just what he wears. So I'm sure a lot of his friends, if they watch it, are going to go, dude, are you just like, did you just like walk on set and they just like.
Yourself?
Yeah, as yourself. So, yeah. So that's that. But a lot of people who are atypical fans thought that, not knowing, you know, him in his real life, thought that was like me. Like I said, oh, cool, I'm gonna have you wear my jacket. That's just his stuff. And so it was cool to have all this band merch and all the, because it's not like a metal movie or has anything to do with culturally with metal or grind or power violence. But there's, especially because Andy being on the soundtrack, doing the soundtrack and everything, there's so many pieces of that in the movie. In a movie that oddly enough has nothing to do with metal or like grind or anything. Right. You know, and I didn't think that was necessarily completely like uncomfortable or disjointed, you know, out of the fact of like Dustin's character's, you know, disgust, you know, toward, you know, this kid who's dating his daughter, and he's like this like punk, you know, hardcore looking kid smoking all the time and shit. Yeah. I thought in that sense it fit very well because, you know, it's like he's meant to like hate this kid and he's just like this fucking like got patches all over the place. And that one moment, you know what I mean? It's like that's him like swinging back. You know, it's almost like thematically swinging back at him. Like, so that's why it plays right at that moment actually too, in the story. So just some little other layer that, you know, I threw in just because it's not like it was written in the script. You know, Lane walks up wearing a patched jacket with blasphemy on her. So like none of that was written into it or anything. It just ended up being aspect of it. I just knew that it was going to be he hated his daughter's boyfriend, and then that all just ended up being part of it afterwards.
Yeah, I love that. I do want to mention we're just about at an hour here. Did you need to cut and maybe come back and do something further? Because I still had some musical questions and different things about the band, but I didn't want to.
Does it cut off at an hour?
No. It'll notify me if it needs to, and then we can just restart if needed.
Okay. No, this is my day right now, man. It's just me.
Sick. All right. Awesome.
Yeah, man.
Awesome. All right. So we're you know, touching on Full of Hell and, you know, musical interests and whatnot. I wanted to dig into music and as far as, you know, the band and whatnot. Even earlier on, as far as earlier bands that you remember resonating with you, what were things that, you know, that really kind of that struck interest early on, and how did heavy music get introduced to you?
I'm just laughing at Dustin's comment actually too. Yeah, I'm sure that was a really easy thing to tap into. What were some? So I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question?
Just earlier musical interests, things that kind of, maybe things that your parents had listened to or that you were hearing on the radio, but that you were starting to dig into, and then how heavy music got introduced to you.
My dad, I grew up, my parents listened to, various music. My mom is who really got me into 90s alternative and 80s music, which is how I, eventually ended up into stuff like Sisters of Mercy and stuff. But on the other aspect, I grew up listening to Pantera, Metallica, and all that stuff too, very early on. So now in 2021, that seems like antiquated, older music. But my dad's Gen X, so when I was born in '88, so like Metallica and Pantera were still like heavy, relevant music. Like it was mainstream, but it wasn't common radio rock yet. So I remember still listening to music that like my teachers would be like, you listen to that like with your parents and shit. So I'm sure that makes me sound so white trash. I didn't walk around with a sleeveless shirt at school or something like that. But no, I still remember like Cemetery Gates like totally blowing the door, the hinges off the door for me. A record really early on though. I remember the first time like getting into not listening to just singles but whole records was Ride the Lightning. Was a record that like as in like 5th grade, just everything from beginning to end, like that was a really influential record for me. And then like as I got older,
totally.
There was the regrettable nu metal phase that I'm sure a lot of us LD50 was a record. The Mudvayne record was like another huge one for me as a kid, like practicing screaming in my room like with a TV remote to that record. Like that was a huge one for me. But as I got older, like stuff that I heard like at about 14 that's now permanently with me. Actually, because I was thinking about this when you and I were talking last night. Some records that kind of stayed with me that are still like influential to me would be like the Dillinger record, Miss Machine, the Red Chord album, Clients, On Broken Wings, it's all along goodbye. And
my God!
Like some of us may never see the world, and it's all along goodbye. I still like would love to rip off. That's still a relevant sound to me. But 2 records that I think that permanently changed my taste in music and set me down a trajectory would be Black Dahlia's Unhallowed. The first time I didn't listen to anything that didn't have like singing choruses and shit up until that point. That record set me down a whole different trajectory. And then the record that took that and really shaped into something else was No Heroes. When Converge released No Heroes and I heard that title track, it was like on on-demand music choice, and that changed everything for me. So those are records that to me are still immensely influential, even within like Wounded Touch. I mean, we still listen to Unhallowed while driving on, while on tour. No Heroes is like, I think a lot of guys in the band's favorite Converge record. And like I said, On Broken Wings, those first 2 records are still huge ones for me.
Dude, that's it's so insane. Like On Broken Wings is one of those bands where like I still wish to this day I saw them some years ago with Black My Heart, and they had a fucking Master of Puppets ripoff T-shirt. I don't know where this thing went, and I'm so bummed that I fucking lost it.
On Broken Wings,
I love that band.
They're one of those bands. Everybody talks about being into them. Everybody wants to be into On Broken Wings, but every time they come around, people just kind of like, oh, I'll see them again. Because I remember when they played it, This Is Hardcore, all the kids into the metalcore throwback would talk about digging them and then didn't know the songs when they played. And it's like wild to me because On Broken Wings played at the Ritz years ago, and it was like with Red Eye Flight and bands like that, and the place got destroyed. It was so so it's like I wish On Broken Wings would come play Detroit, because I feel like it would just be so ignorant and so out of control. And because that's the environment I want to see them in. I've seen them twice, and it wasn't into I've seen them twice, but it wasn't in a setting I wanted to see them in. So
okay.
I really hope, I would love to see them play Detroit, because that is such a unstoppable band.
Dude, I saw, when I saw him, it was at a damn fire station, and they had Wheeler
Really?
from Black My Heart singing because Jonathan was on a fucking tether in Boston.
Oh no shit! That's so great.
Yeah.
Man. Oh man.
Yeah. So they,
cool.
and I think for part of it, they had Jerome come up and like he had like sang a couple of tracks, but the majority of it was Wheeler, and it was like so intense. I mean, it was fucking nuts. Like people were losing their shit and trying not to trash the place because it was like a fucking fire station too, like a side building. But
right, but
I don't know how they booked that, but it was fucking awesome. Yeah.
That's so dope.
Yeah, for sure. That track of Lazarus Envy, I feel like out of hardcore albums, bands, songs, probably still today is like top 5 favorite ever. That ending is
I know it's such probably like corny metalcore, but like it's still to me what I would like to capture. I remember hearing that record going, this band is so fucking pissed they can't even be bothered to get a decent mix or performance. Like they just want to try. You know what I mean? Like probably what people thought about like initial black metal records. I remember thinking like, these dudes are so pissed off they didn't even care about getting the mix right. They just want to, they just want this record out. And that's kind of, I think, something I've wanted to capture with Wounded Touch, even though I think we're like, we can't actually just put out a trash recording. But like, I want to like, I feel like I've my whole adult life been chasing the vocal performance on like Starscream. In every band I've been in, I feel like I've always been chasing after that performance and that mix. So I hope we
I love that
on this record.
Okay, I love that. I'll be listening for that too. I like that. I like that attention to detail there, because yeah, that track is fucking awesome, you know. And or like another one, Frozen Over. I mean, I can't make this whole interview about On Broken Wings, but that video, you know, when like the bell hits and he like sticks up his fucking lip and he's got the chrome like the grill.
Yeah.
My man, nobody can fucking touch this band, dude. It's sick. I love it. I don't hear enough people talk about that band too, so I love that you brought that up for sure.
Yeah.
What about as far as early on music videos? You know, what was something that caught your attention? Maybe even a band that you didn't know before, and the video drew you in that you discovered through that.
I remember the video for One by Metallica was because it's not even like a scary. I mean, like thematically it is, but it's not like it's a scary song. But that video used to scare the shit out of me. And I know it's all clips from a movie. It's not all shot original to the film. But that reminds me of like what I liked about Lovecraft, and not what you're directly seeing, but what's implied. Like in the video, you never see what's beneath the mask, and how it's all implied that this guy's face is missing, and what the hell does this guy look like under that? Like that video, I as a little kid was my favorite music video. But I remember, and I still want to do this, like the Tool videos that were like claymation. I wish now, even for Wounded Touch, we could still do like one of those, but what it would have to cost is probably immense, an immense amount of money just to pay someone for the time to do that. And then it's funny because nothing I've ever shot or worked on has been as surreal as this, but I always liked really surrealistic imagery-driven videos, not narrative ones. Like I loved the video for Marilyn Manson's Sweet Dreams cover. I know he's canceled, and I know I can't, you know, like, but that video is still so great. And I those are the videos that I still would like to eventually be able to do something similar to.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, and I love that. And, you know, like, I guess kind of a sidetrack, but the whole thing with like something mentioned earlier as far as like all the hands that go into film and all the hands that go into music, you know, like the hard thing about like with Marilyn Manson or like someone else who's in music where it's like they did some shitty things. It's like, oh, you know, I don't want to listen to their stuff anymore. I don't want to watch these movies. Like, for instance, like the fella who did Jeepers Creepers, who was the pedophile. I'm trying to think.
That's you know, it's funny you bring that
Victor
up
Salva.
too. Is that and I'm glad I found out everything about that director because I loved the first one and I wanted to get a Jeepers Creepers tattoo, and now I can't bring myself to do it. Like, it's just, I can understand in some ways, on some things you can say, yeah, I separate the art from the artist, but that director, assaulted a child on the set of that earlier film Clown House, I think is what it's called.
Clown House.
And
Yeah.
because that director used their art to do that, I feel like I can no longer separate the art from the artist. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that was something that it's tough because I loved that first film. I loved Jeepers Creepers, but I think sometimes if someone was a bad person after the art, or they're dead, you can separate the art from the artist on some things. But when there's some people who are still financially benefiting from their art and things like that, I feel like you just can't. Like, you can't justify giving them money and contributing towards their financial well-being if they are also a bad person.
Right.
There's how many bands do we all listen to, bad people in it, that we don't know about yet? You can't avoid.
Yeah, right.
You can avoid some of it, and you can. But I think it's as long as you're trying to be cognizant of being on the side of the victim and trying to do the right thing, I think it's, admirable. But I just brought that up because, Manson is canceled and Manson did do some terrible things. But that video still, I had to mention, like, that video changed everything for me, and it'll always have some kind of influence on me.
Right.
But it's a bummer, like you said. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just saying it's a bummer, like,
just the effect of
we keep talking.
Jeepers Creepers, yeah. No, I think I'm on like a slight delay. I apologize. Go ahead.
No, it's all right. Well, Jeepers Creepers is an exact one I would have brought up in a movie that was hugely influential in our age group when it came out. But now it's like I own like an old $4 used copy of it. But if they ever did like a sick Blu-ray re-release or anything like that, I wouldn't buy it just because I know it would financially directly benefit that director, who's a terrible person. But
right.
I still dig the movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's still unfortunately, it still was a great movie, but I'll never financially contribute to that person's well-being.
Right. And I think my point was just going to be where it's really unfortunate because, like, when you take into consideration as far as with film, there's so many other hands, that are at hand as far as that, are doing people, like something with Jeepers Creepers, with many talents that come to hand. But, it's like you have that one dude who is fucking it up for everybody, where it's like you have situations like that.
Everybody
have a hard time helping.
And I think if it had been like, oh, the boom operator was a terrible person, or, or if it was like, oh, the guy who did the score was a terrible person. But I think when it's the writer and director, that's just like, it's unavoidable now. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Because, yeah, the project isn't just the writer and directors, but when it's the person sitting at the top whose project it is, it trickles down to everybody. Not that they're all culpable because it didn't happen on that set, but that's when it's like, okay, I can't dig this movie, or I can't contribute to this anymore because this one person screwed it up for everybody. But it's the right thing to do, and unfortunately, you lose some pieces of art having to try to chase doing the right thing.
Yeah, touche. The integrity for sure.
Yeah, right.
What about as far as on a lighter note, digging into with Wounded Touch's cover of My Own Summer. Tell us about how that track came about, covering a Deftones song, and what 3 Deftones songs are your favorites ever that you could say?
So that started because half the guys in Wounded Touch were in a band called Steamroller, this power violence band from Flint. Do you remember them at all?
The name sounds really familiar, yeah.
Steamroller was one of my favorite bands from the state. And they were like a power violence band with like a heavy, like guitar-wise, it was like a heavy glass jaw and Deftones influence mixed in with it. I don't know how to really accurately explain their sound, but they used to cover that. They used to play that live sometimes. And when we were tracking our single for the Burning Wind and Binary Split, we were like, oh, let's do a second track. And our guitarist Mike was like, well, I know, let's just do My Own Summer. We already know how to play it from our old band. We'll just do that. And what's funny, too, is my old band, Sunlight Fane, had also done a Deftones cover. We did that for our friend who passed away. That was what he loved, that band. We played it at his memorial show, and we recorded it. And separate from that, this band also was like, oh, let's do a Deftones cover. It wasn't because they went, oh, you've done that before, let's do that. It just happened in two separate bands of mine. So we just something we did for fun and just threw it up online. But my three favorite tracks of theirs would be like the song Tempest from Koino Yokan, which is like my favorite record.
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah. That track, Digital Bath, and then my favorite track of theirs is that unreleased track from Eros that they released the day that Chi died.
Chi died?
Yeah.
What song was it? I can't think
of
what
track Smile. And they threw it up online and it got pulled down because I think Warner Brothers or Universal, whoever they're on, still owns the rights. But it's the only track from that record that was finished from beginning to end. And it was like unmastered. They released that, and it got pulled down, but a bunch of people had like screen recorded, and it's up on YouTube. It's not released on anything, but they released it, and it's about someone dying, and I think I don't know if it's because of what it pertains to or not, but that's probably my favorite track of theirs. Just this rare little B-side that'll probably never come out. You all right?
Oh my God. Sorry. I'm dying. Excuse me. I apologize. Oh man. Getting a cough fit there. No, yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because I was trying to think last night of different tracks that were favorites too. Tempest was on there, Digital Bath, Battle Axe from Self-Titled.
Oh,
it's got
okay.
the really soft the intro to, dude, when like the tom and snare come in and it gets really heavy. Unreal. Yeah. Absolutely unreal. I love it.
No, just a band that, like, it's so funny that they're still relevant and still doing their own thing because they're so dope. But I feel like they're like one of those bands, kind of like Rage Against the Machine, that like people from different scenes all dig it, and it almost goes without saying, like, oh yeah, Deftones are sick. I feel like everybody kind of rolls their eyes and goes, well, yeah, I know.
You know, it's funny. I have lots of friends that absolutely hate that band, and
really?
it drives me nuts. Yeah.
I understand being lukewarm.
I've always brought up covering. Heavy dislike.
That's funny. That's so funny.
Doesn't make sense to me, but I'm like, man, all right, go off, shit.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, with Wounded Touch, I wanted to dig into the new album. So you have an album released in March of this next year, correct?
Yeah, March 22.
Okay. All right. What can you tell us about the album and what to expect possibly versus previous works?
It's a lot more experimental than our EP. We wrote it in quarantine, like through phone conversations, through voicemails, through like chats, and then because I got COVID really early on, I got it at the end of March of 2020. So we were still heavy in the middle of lockdown. I remember the first time we had a practice, we were in our guitarist Mike's basement. Everybody was in a different corner, masked up, and just jamming the record or jamming the EP. But then we started writing. It just kind of made us want to write, and so I feel like we wrote it in this very strange manner, and I think the experimental aspects of that really kind of show through on the music. It's a lot less straightforward than the EP was, I think.
Oh, okay. All right. So, and some different aspects too, as far as a little bit of diversity with kind of breaking off from straight up heaviness, or what are you talking with?
No, it's still a super heavy record, I think. Especially the first track, that we released with Trevor Strnad on it.
Yeah.
But it's just we wanted to do a lot weirder stuff. We all had this moment, especially the guitarist Mike and I, who just had his son, and my wife and I's son will be here in about 3 weeks. We had this moment where life was kind of happening. I think everybody had thought, I could possibly never do another record again. This could all be gone, or I might never have another opportunity. So I want to throw everything I possibly could into this record. And we just kind of went on that. We wrote 2 songs in the studio.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so, and we recorded with Andy, actually. After he had scored the film, we went to him and did that. So, but there was just a lot of that whole, there's a lot of things I want to try on this because I might never get another opportunity. So I think some of that people will kind of feel that on a lot of the music.
Damn, okay. What were some of the earlier demos that you remember hearing, as far as maybe the initial foundation for the album?
The 3 tracks that ended up being recorded that were like some of the first ones. There's this track called "A Prayer's Unwanted Answer," which sounds a lot like Daughters, and like the record. The song. There's another song on it that's called "The Splinter Waltz." That's like kind of a mixture of like Glass Jaw, like "Remembering Never," and like we kind of were messing around with that.
Oh, damn.
And like we were all just kind of I don't think we thought those tracks would end up on the record. We were just writing just to write and messing around, and then the record kind of just grew from there. And it was all very apparent that we were all trying to write a record that sounded like something we would have listened to when we were 15 in high school. Like I would say the average age of the band is 30. I'd say that's the median age. And I think all of us said, hey, let's just everybody's getting back into throwback metalcore. Why don't we just write something that we all would have listened to when we were 15? And I think that was kind of our that was our litmus test. Was like, would I have
Okay.
put this on my MySpace page? And that's just kind of where we went from there.
Nice. All right, I love that. I mean, that's certainly I don't say too often a vibe, but that's a vibe I could fucking go with. That's sick. I recently had somebody from Fear Before on interviewing Adam, the guitarist, and I was telling him, I was like, between Fear Before and Deftones, those were always my MySpace tracks, and up until then, I hadn't thought about MySpace in fucking forever.
It's unfortunate how much it seems to come up. Coming up on 33, it's sad how often MySpace comes up in conversation amongst me and my friends, but it does. But
yeah,
we've actually joked about covering a Fear Before the March of Flames track.
Ooh.
And I maybe one day we'll do it. Maybe one day we'll whip it out at a show, and I won't tell you it's coming.
Oh, damn, that'd be sick. Fear Before on Broken Wings, Deftones. I mean, that sounds like a good cover set. Shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Well diverse. What about the idea as far as the Wounded Touch Straight Razors? I know this was for a previous release, but how did that come about? And a very odd choice, but definitely sick.
So again, our guitarists Mike and Kyle and our drummer Jeremy, they like the weed, and they were at one practice writing stuff down. We called it their high-deas, and they were just writing like, oh, what would be something sick to put on merch? And our logo had a straight razor in it, and our guitarist Kyle was like, what about the straight razor logo on a straight razor? And all of them going, oh my god, man. And like we pitched the idea to the label, and they're like, yeah, we'll do it. And they just laser etched it on there. And it's wild. I have one, and those things are sharp as hell. Like
oh god,
I feel like it was totally an irresponsible thing for us to like ship out straight razors as a merch item, but I still stand by that decision. So I wanted to do butterfly knives with this record, but I forgot that they're illegal in several states. So.
Oh my god, that is hilarious. What about in all the years of you going to shows and different things? What comes to mind as far as maybe a favorite merch item that you've picked up from a show or maybe seen?
Oh shit. I I can't even really think of a specific one, to be honest. I really dug when like a lot of the A389 bands started doing ski masks, and I know they weren't the first, but I can't think of anyone prior to that. I can't. I mean, it was probably some noise artist or something before that, but I can't. I don't know who really pioneered that, but that was something I got really stoked on, was ski masks. And those are probably some of my favorite merch items to see, or like little unconventional ones that are still like that still have utility that you can still wear, but like weird ones like that.
I love that. Man, that's absolutely sick. And this was that was my last question that I had wrapped on with music interests and whatnot. This has been awesome, digging into the movie, digging into the band and the new album that's coming out. I do have one finale, but if you want to let everybody know, you mentioned a 12-inch coming out for the score of the movie. What do you have going on? From this point out, anything in the future here?
For other, I mean,
just in film and music.
Right now it's just kind of pushing the record once that drops, and pushing the further as far as we can, and then I'm still just writing constantly. There's a couple scripts I was actually just shooting the shit with Kier this morning about one I have written, but not in an official capacity. Kier and I aren't in talks for that one. It was just an example of something I wrote that I'm trying to. I'm gonna start putting feelers out for to see if there's any interest in it. Until then, though, I've gone so much further than I would have ever expected on this film that I'm just trying to enjoy the ride, So and same with the band, playing Furnace Fest and everything. In both of these outlets, they have done so much more than I would have ever expected, that I'm going to just enjoy the ride, because I feel like if I don't, when it's over, I'm going to really, when it's inevitably over, everything's always has an end. I don't want to go back and go, man, I should have enjoyed that more. So I'm trying to just kind of enjoy the ride right now.
Nice. And I can certainly say, I mean, as far as either on both ends, with the Film Fest and then with Furnace Fest, you mentioned even Remembering Never. I know Pete was talking about, you guys from Furnace Fest and making an impression and being one of the best, if not the best band of the weekend. I'm like, holy fuck, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, that was,
you're killing it.
That was a wild moment. It's not like we had that conversation with him prior to. That was just some wild little thing that he said that. And I was like, and our guitarist Mike and I were standing side stage, and that was like a oh shit moment for us. The whole weekend was so surreal, playing with, I think we were the youngest, newest band of the whole weekend. Everybody, there were some contemporary bands, like See You Space Cowboy and stuff, but I think we were the least relevant band of the entire weekend. So to play the whole weekend with these huge bands and to have conversations with them about our band was super dope. And I hope we have a chance to play again next year.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's awesome.
That was
really
that
cool
was
looking
unreal.
outlet.
It was such an unreal weekend.
Yeah, for sure. Damn. All right. Well, look, here's this finale here. We're going to kind of touch on a hypothetical situation. First of all, let me ask you, have you ever heard of the movie Judgment Night? You remember that movie from the 90s?
I remember when Rucking Fountain did the variant of it, but I myself have never seen it.
Okay, so the bigger thing,
that probably is right now putting a big poser sign over my head right now. But I've actually never seen it.
Well, no. So the funny thing about this movie though was actually the soundtrack was even more notable than what the movie was. And on the soundtrack they had a collaboration where every song was a metal or a heavy artist mixed with someone outside of that realm. Someone in hip hop, you'd have Slayer and Ice-T and all these different, different, acts that were kind of combined on a collaboration. So let's say that there was, with you guys' mock of the Freddy vs. Jason cover, if there was a Freddy vs. Jason 2 and you guys were to appear on this album, what band outside or what artist outside of the metal, heavy, hardcore genre would you want to collaborate with for a track on this?
On a film like that? What's something weird? Honestly, probably something really weird like Mike Patton or, but I I guess he's like still in the metal realm, so I feel like it would probably be something like that, or it would be yeah, that's you know what, I'm not even gonna like start throwing out random ones. That's gonna be my it would just be Mike Patton, just doing something weird with him would be my my
Okay. I love that. And that, I mean, that dude, you know, it's to say that he's obviously like in heavier realms, but some of the shit that he has with like Mr. Bungle and different things that are just completely out of the left field. I mean, he would be
that is his realm, and everything he's done in terms of metal has been like an additional thing in his catalog. But I feel like first and foremost, you know, experimental is where I have him start in my mind.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. No, that's awesome choice. I love that, man. That's awesome. Look, this is going to be our time. I truly appreciate here. I'll have this edited within the next few weeks. I'll have this up on YouTube here.
Hell yeah.
And I'll cut out some of the parts, maybe coughing and, you know, some of the cuts that we had from, you know, little connection things and whatnot. But thank you very much for taking the time today, man. And you know, sending out the invite for me coming to the premiere there. That was fucking awesome. That was the first time for me. So I really appreciate it. And I look forward to all the stuff that you have coming up, my man.
Well, I can't wait to watch all the other I can't wait to watch all the other episodes with everybody else from the film.
Yeah, for sure. We're gonna have, you know, I'm gonna have like a whole playlist set aside on YouTube too, as far as for the season 2, and I have a couple other things in the next couple of months that I'm gonna be reaching out. I'm gonna be having on other people that weren't on just this month as well too. So we'll be digging pretty far into the movie, and I'm glad and honored to be able to do this and you know, hear some of the cool behind the scenes shit that's been going on with the movie. So thank you very much for all the insight.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
Yep. All right, man. You take care. Stay safe. Have a good day, and stay healthy. Yep.
Yeah, you
See
too,
you later,
man. Later.
I'm
He's a lo-fi horror guy. Yeah, he's kind of a guy, but he is so lo-fi a horror guy. Yeah. Lo-fi horror guy has been recorded in front of a live studio audience.